Yeah. Okay. You want to leave now?
Yeah, I mean, because I was going to jump on a boat to get back out to 4:35. If you guys are going to be covering it, I'll stay and take a flight later on. Okay. All right, no worries. Thank you.
What's going on? Good to see you. You been okay? Nice fall. Nice fall season. It's my favorite time of year. Yeah, it's good. It's nice to be here. No, that's what I know. No, but if you were to say that he has set in Japanese books, all right.
This is all the capital stuff in hard copy. Well, one is that's general fund, wait, other way around. General fund, enterprise fund. I will put it up on the screen if you would like.
Okay.
Here's the letter.
That's extra.
Stephen
While we get the ED turned on, I'd like to call the meeting of the Town of Nantucket Finance Committee. Let's have one conversation at the table, gentlemen. Thank you. To order. Is there any public comment to come before us today on any item that is not on the agenda? We have the minutes of the December 10th meeting.
I just received them today,
Okay,
so I'll put them on for next.
So we will defer that item. I'll just kind of review the agenda. We'll be also reviewing, looking forward to the presentation from the chairman and vice chairman and others of the Capital Program Committee, ably represented on the finance for the Finance Committee by Peter. We're also item 5, review motions for citizen warrant articles for 2016 annual town meeting. I know from Libby that those aren't quite ready, so we will be deferring that item. And then the date of our next meeting is to report. We can talk about the agenda to confirm the agenda for that time. Any questions about the agenda? People from the group? So we're going to see up on the screen the presentation from the Capital Program Review Committee. Hello. You're gonna see the presentation on the screen.
You want me to put which?
The overview. The summary. So, I'd like to introduce Phil Stambo, who's chairman, and he can introduce anybody from his committee this year, and then begin the presentation.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm presenting to the Supreme Court justices. So be very thoughtful. Peter McEachern is a member of our committee. Christy Hickam joined us this year as vice chair. Richard Hussey Street. Richard Hussey is the secretary, and he's been on the committee for a few years. And Pete Kaiser is brand new. He's a local boy, graduated from Boston College, works at Cape Cod 5, just got his CFA, which is a very significant achievement in the financial services industry. So we're very, very, very happy with our group. I'm trying to think of who's not here. Nat Lowell is not here, and Tobias is not here. They might come. So anyway, thank you very much. We've been working on going through the departments one by one, looking at each item. Oh, thank you very much. And since I guess we started in September, we're at this point. We're not finished. We don't feel like we're finished because we haven't gotten to the point where we can analyze what the impact on tax rates are and how the bonds will run off and all that sort of thing. But at least for this purpose, we'll concentrate on 2017. Before I get into it, I wanted to mention the software that Brian got installed. The Board of Selectmen approved an expenditure, a fairly modest expenditure, right around $10,000. This program automates, uses technology to formalize our CIP for the town. We are the very first town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to use the software, although almost 250 communities across the country use it. I mentioned Wichita to somebody. Some fairly significantly big towns use it, but even smaller towns in Nantucket uses it. So it's a very helpful tool. We found out about the software, and the decision was whether to start using it this year or not, because I really wasn't happy with the format that we've been using in the past. And the consistency and the information that was presented to us. And this software helps the department heads present each project much better than they did in the past. There's a document right up there. This is a printout right from the software. Behind each one of those line items is a separate sheet that a department head fills out, and that is what this represents. This may be the only hard copy. Maybe Brian has one. It's all online, but basically each line item has a description, has a project number 1. Could you go back? Sorry.
You want to go back to the overview?
Just the back, right there. Each project has a project number, which department it comes from, what the project is, what the description of the project is, what the justification of the project is, what the expenditure is by year, going out 10 years, and then the budget impact in the next line. So each line item will have that. Now, this was installed in short order. It's not totally complete and totally filled out, but this is a great start. It does make us a lot more consistent in what we're presented and what we can take a look at. So, just want to thank Brian immensely for getting this done for us in such a short period of time. He worked unlimited hours to make this happen. So I'm very happy with this, and I'm very thankful to everyone for making this happen. The overview, just going back. To make it short and sweet, this is the CIP for the fiscal 2017. Projects by department. Total in the general fund $9,182,000, and that's the general fund. If you recall, when Libby presented to the Board of Selectmen. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm on that. Just the the very first. There you go. Yeah. Sorry, right there. Right. When this was presented to the Board of Selectmen back late summer, early fall, the general fund was like over $30 million, but over time it's been brought down to 9.182 in general fund capital expenditures that we are recommending as a committee, and 109.192 in enterprise capital expenditures. To be funded from the general fund is $38.2 million for 2 sewer projects, which represents 40% of the cost of those enterprise fund projects, those sewer projects. That was a result of the sewer work group trying to figure out whether it should be 50-50 or, wound up to be 60-40. So we're taking the 40%. So it makes a significant general fund I think the most I can remember that we've ever recommended was around $5 million. So we're even the $9 million is higher. But anyway, there's a breakdown of a general fund to DPW plus $350,000 fire department, 705 public safety, police 725 police, public works the biggest at 5.8, schools 1125, and administration 425. Over on the other side, enterprise funds, airport a little over $2 million, of which about $1.55 million comes from other sources, state and FAA. Our Island Home, sewer, the big projects there, not only the two projects that represent $95 million, but considerably other more projects there. Solid waste, $1.3 million, Sconset Water, $380,000, and Wanacom at $2.6 million. So those are the numbers that we are recommending, and we've also got on the if you go down to the next page. Also, we've put together, Brian, sources of funding for those. We've got sources of funds for the general fund, except for 2.817933, the last number there. So those will have to be. We'll have to figure out how to fund that much of the general fund. Obviously, the sewer will be bonded. Enterprise fund sourcing, airport. I mentioned the $1,550,000. Sewer projects coming from the general fund. The rest, the 60% of those sewer projects will come from betterments from the users, and in other funds or borrowings at $12 million. So it's a fairly significant capital plan on both the general fund side and the enterprise fund side. I thought before we get into the weeds, I'd like to mention that what maybe voters will see as a result of our recommendations and the department head's recommendations. One, the completion of the in-town bike route from Washington Street to the Rotary, from in-town out to the Rotary. I think that'll be a very visible thing. 2 new ambulances, but we're retaining 1 for emergency transport off-island and special events. We'll be going from 3 ambulances to 4, and I think that's a significant item for health care and taking care of our people. The F Street bulkhead out in Nantucket and the children's beach boat ramp will be fixed. This came up at the presentations by WPI. They did a project on the sidewalks downtown, and Mike Burns was here, and he sponsored the project actually, and we talked a lot about the sidewalks, and they gave a grading of 1 through 5, and some of our sidewalks are in great shape on Federal Street and maybe Broad Street, but other sidewalks and curbing are just not at all good. So this is a phased plan to level and widen sidewalks beginning in the lower Main Street area to the docks. It's quite extensive. So it's $1.5 million there, and then there'll be, and if you look when we get to the detail, there's $1 million the next year, the $1 million the next year, the $1 million the next year, until we get that straightened out. But that'll be a very visible thing to tourists and residents alike. Paving of First Way and Wynn Street, and the Phase 2 paving in the Surfside area, which will improve that area quite a bit. And then a small item, it's not very much in capital, but an asphalt recycler and hot box for pothole repairs. I mean, if anything's going to be visible to the residents and voters, the repairing of those potholes in a way that they stay fixed for a little bit longer than what's been happening. I think those are the significant things in the general fund. I think in the enterprise, I'll just go quickly through the enterprise funds. I thought I also might say something about what's not there, because in the out years you're going to see there's some fairly major projects that
that have been continue to be pushed out. One is, what are we going to do about our island home? We don't have really a satisfactory recommendation or plan at this point. A new 2 Fairgrounds Road administration building. There's not really a solid plan about who would go there and what it would look like and that sort of thing. We also had in the Capital Program Committee a discussion about the Children's Beach concession stand, whether to do that or not even. Because it's a very expensive thing, and I'm not sure it's a moneymaker for anybody. And then the DPW storage garage for a lot of this equipment that gets rusted out very quickly by being outside. That storage shed could really help out. So those are not there, but they will be there coming down the road. In the enterprise fund, I mentioned the airport capital requisition of $2 million, but $1.5 million comes from other sources. There are items for our island home, but they're really just to keep it going until we do have a solution there. Just have to be done. The 2 major projects for the sewer, completing cell 3 at the landfill, and then various repairs and maintenance of the 2 water systems, Wannacomet and Sconset. So, Chairman, I don't know how you'd like to proceed. One of the thoughts I had would be just rather than go line by line, if the committee had questions on any items. There's 30 items, I think, or so, general fund items, and 30 items or so in the enterprise fund. So there's like 60 items.
That's a good point to pause at our last meeting, this committee, as you know, Capital Program Committee is a subcommittee, the Finance Committee, so we appreciate your hard work. Today, I think we're interested in learning about the proposals. We asked some questions about them, and then we're going to come back and have more deliberation. And we've asked Brian's working on a 10-year capital plan, and also the impact on debt. So we can start with questions you might have, or I'll leave it up to the committee. John?
Question on funding.
We just put that. So you want to just take questions? Sure. John. Yes.
Please use the microphones. They are on.
They are on? Okay.
Yes. It's on.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
They're on.
I was looking at the sources of funds,
Yes.
and I didn't see anything on from the state on roads. Is that something that's gone away, or?
No, it has not. The 900,000 is not. Is that the chapter?
Somewhere on 6, but
If you're referring to the Chapter 90 funds, it's listed, but there's no amount yet because we don't know it yet.
Oh, okay.
what do you expect, about 6?
Probably about the same as last year, between 6 and 7. 650 we got this year.
Two questions, Phil.
Hi, Joe.
The first is that in the sources of funding for the sewer, the $38.4 million, that's basically that'll be borrowed out of by the general fund in effect. So that's increased debt, right? So
That is increased debt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that require an override?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be a debt
If all
exclusion.
things go, we have to require.
Yes.
Okay.
Even the 2 million or so will have from the other general fund items will have to be that as well.
And then just specifically about the various capital amounts for the sewers that are in the enterprise fund, it's broken out into planning and
Design.
and construction, and the numbers for planning and design are like 20% of the total cost. Is that? I asked that before, but I was sort of blown away. I mean, 20%, a $12 million design cost for a $50 million project?
I mean, it may come in significantly lower, and that ultimately that piece could be construction. One of the things to note about that is that was basically what when we originally were talking to Woodard and Curran, they said use an 80-20 split. Historically, it could be significantly less. I'm not entirely sure. The one thing to note about those projects, which the Capital Program Committee had asked, and we are currently working with Woodard and Curran on, is updating the actual cost of those projects, because those original costs were from I think either 2013 or 14, so we're updating them to 2017 and forward right now as we speak. And as soon as I have them, I'll update not only the capital program committee, but all the FinCom and everyone else at the same time.
And another thing that Brian found out was that Woodward and Curran did in fact have some incremental increases in their 2013 number for going forward, so it may not be too bad. We're hoping.
So sort of a follow-up. So what happens to the 58 or 57 for betterments? That's got to be borrowed as well. So how's that treated?
Well, at town meeting, the article is for the projects we have to authorize the borrowing of the entire amount because the majority of the project is eligible for 0% financing through the state revolving fund, which would be a loan. So we would have to authorize the entire amount. The funding source for 60% of it, as voted by the selectmen, would be the betterments, which would offset the cost of the debt. So the remaining portion, the 40%, would actually be paid through the tax rate. So.
I think we did something. I think we have money for doing the bathrooms at Children's Beach, but this was talking about the stand where they sell food, et cetera, et cetera. There's been some conversation as we went on about. I'll let you talk in a second. There's been some conversation that the lease is up relatively soon, and if we have to, because I think there was it was $500,000 in here, and we said, so what's the lease? What, do we just really want to provide the service, or do we really need a concession stand at Children's Beach? There was no answers on that, but it at least prompted us to say, well, if we don't know the answer, let's push it out to 2018 at least. Karen?
We did get a design for a renovation of not only the concession stand, but building new men's and women's restrooms. And the architect's estimate was $900,000. When we put it out to bid, it came in over $1 million. So at first, our thought was to try to get the additional funds. Since that time, we've looked into just building the bathroom portion and doing minimal roofing and just small restoration to the concession stand itself.
Cliff, it'd be unattached to the current concession stand. It's a building that would be not attached to the current concession. That, I think, would be a whole other discussion on that, but this is for bathrooms, new bathrooms.
We felt there really is a need for bathrooms, bathhouse kind of, because it's very heavily used. It's a very, very nice facility for tourists and residents. Bathrooms, place to change, yes, but maybe the concession needs to be discussed more.
It'd also give us a little flexibility on what actually to do with the concession stand that is somewhat in question.
Is there, you didn't have to run an analysis on concession stand and whether it ever it's a viable investment? I mean, it strikes me that it probably isn't.
It strikes us that way too, but no, we did not do an analysis.
So if we were not necessarily this year, but down the road, we were basically investing in
a rental.
In a rental that we will never get a return on. So
Service.
Do we consider it a service that the town needs to provide, or at a subsidy, or not?
Surfside Beach or Nantucket Beach or
No, we don't. Right. Well, yeah. Right.
Sort of
That's kind of why we sort of said. We agree.
Changing the subject a little bit.
Sure.
I see under roads you've got $1 million for Surfside area road reconstruction.
Second phase.
Yeah, that's what roads is that?
I think it'd be Boulevard, Lovers, and Okora.
Small portion of Lovers. just the paved portion of Lover's Lane. Mostly.
Phil, under that same category, the public works, can you explain the Belvedere Farm Field House? What's involved in that?
It's just storage mainly, someplace to put the equipment when, to keep it out of the thing. There's no bathrooms involved, so it's just a building to house storage, as far as I know.
That's on Belvedere Farm Road?
Nobodere Farm, the fields.
The new
de-
fields.
Not across the way, across from Delta Fields on the other side.
So just for storage?
There's bathrooms.
There's additional, yeah.
I thought there were no bathrooms.
Bathrooms,
shower.
changing, storage, no kitchen.
I think there were, but it was geared down. Chuck?
Question on sources, you got a $2 million source of funds from sale of real estate. Do we know what that piece of, that parcel might be, or what that asset is, or is it just a plug?
It's, okay, well, Brian.
It's not a plug. It's it's the proceeds from all of the yard sales that have gone on. When you sell a piece, it actually has to go into an account called proceeds from real estate sales, and it can only be appropriated and used by town meeting. There's currently about $4.4 million in there, and we've recommended $2 million to be used.
Thanks, Brian.
One question, are there any capital expenditures where the town has to pay for projects related to the dredging of the levees?
There is not. There's one item in there for dredging, but it's a dredge plan for the island.
On the in-town bike path,
Yes.
and I'm trying to go from memory, but I think that at one point, there was some state funds available, or could be available, or I'm not sure how that goes. Of course, you're not talking about doing anything in a hurry anyway. I didn't know what the status of that is.
I don't either. I don't recall that there was any state funding available for this particular. Some of this is takings and.
I'll start, and Kara may be able to supplement. The current phase of the in-town bike path is meant to be funded with state funds. The bid has come in much higher than what the state has appropriated. So what we heard at Capital Program Committee last week from the transportation planner was that there were mistakes made in the bid submittals, and they were working through what they are and if that brought the bids down any. So there are state funds for phase one. It's in the transportation improvement plan in future years for other phases, but whether or not they get actually funded by the state is unknown at this point.
So maybe.
Question really about your process. Do you assign a ranking?
We used to.
You don't do that now?
We basically have a very congenial group. We discuss it amongst ourselves and decide right then and there whether we want to push it.
Whatever the number was, I numbered and I numbered.
Primarily, that was 2 Fairgrounds Road. It was at 20 million, so that got pushed out.
Taking that off, what were the departmental requests?
There would have been the, well, if it was 32 million, it would have, there would have been some that we eliminated, but not a whole lot.
So what did you, I'd like to know, can you share with the committee what didn't get approved or recommended?
Do you want me to help you out a little bit?
Well, I could go through. I've got a scratched out list, but go ahead.
Oh, a few from...
Well, we pushed out Prospect Street shared use bike path extension because we weren't quite ready to go forward with that. That was 380,000. That's about the only one I
We
can-
pushed out 6.5 million in stormwater improvements.
True, yeah.
We didn't put forward an additional design number for Our Island Home, the municipal building, like you mentioned. And there may have been a few things here and there. First Way was a change from about 2.9 million way
Fire-
down to about 750.
Yeah, the fire department came in with a different solution for their replacing engine 7. They have a chassis that was, I guess, basically free, and they're going to build on top of that as opposed to buying a new replacement for engine 7. So there were some smaller ones that brought it down, but the bigger ones are the ones we just mentioned, the 20 or so for the 2 Fairgrounds Road, $2.5 million for Island Home, $6.5 million for stormwater.
Those were withdrawn and
That'd be a-
not funded.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand, how did you make the decision that virtually everything that was submitted for approval was approved? Or another way to ask it, how did you arrive at the $9 million as the capital planning for this fiscal year?
Because we thought the items that remained were the ones that should be funded at that level.
So you don't start out with a budget?
We do not.
Okay. So I guess
A lot,
that's kind of our,
Tim, really,
that's our role.
yeah, no, a lot of it
Would
comes,
it be helpful it was helpful for us in the past that where you ranked them?
Mm-hmm.
Because part of our job is to see if the requests are financially viable for the town.
I thought that was our role, actually.
Well, we have to make a motion on that.
You do.
We start with the budget. We have and so if you make the recommendations to us, it would be, the town submits a general fund, operating budget. And in the absence of one from you, I'm just trying to understand how we're going to, I guess we'll discuss it as a committee, but, so maybe we can talk about that process in the future. But what I understand is virtually all the items that were requested were approved.
The majority, absolutely. Yeah, but we've never started off with a budget in the capital program committee that I can recall. This is my 6th year. I don't remember us ever.
But you prioritize.
Yes,
I think ranks.
we didn't do that last year either.
But okay, so
Jim, really quickly, you had mentioned that you're just kind of listening to things right now. I think we can probably get something together for you to show you what was omitted, maybe the reason why, whether it was omitted by town administration or the capital committee. As Phil said, the prioritizing did go away with this new system. A lot of the department heads, when they came in to speak with us, a lot of these items are based on their need for these. So, but we can certainly get that to you as a follow-up document, because it's a legitimate question to see the full range of what was requested.
and did you decide to defer any of these for the future? Or did you decide to recommend these for all 2007?
I think there might have been a few that were pushed out,
Yeah,
that there wasn't a necessity this year. That it would, yep, I agree.
Again, that kind of gets back to the ranking, but some analysis of what was
The process. I
needed
understand.
to do this year versus in the future.
Sure.
So 2 things, really.
Maybe I can shed a little light on it, going through that whole thing. I think last year, it might have even been the year before, we stopped ranking because the ranking, we couldn't make any sense out of the ranking. Didn't, when we got done with it, with voting and everything else, everything was ranked excessive. So previous said, let's take another approach. So that's how we got to where we were, because the ranking just wasn't working. Just couldn't figure out how to get around it.
Well, let me ask a question to town administration. How do you decide what to submit as a total amount of money, what you call it, a budget or some other?
We have a loosely applied system of criteria that we call Tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 are considered things that must be done this year. Tier 2 are things that should be done soon, could be next year. And Tier 3 are either things that should be done in the future or would be nice to haves now. almost everything that is in the plan was deemed to be something we need to do now because it hasn't been done, and it's probably, a lot of it has been already pushed off from prior years. So that's why virtually almost everything was a tier 1 in our estimation.
How often do we approve projects and don't do them? Comes to my mind, and I'm not sure if it's been done yet, we moved the school, those garages right behind the skate park,
Mm-hmm.
some foundations. And last time I checked, they weren't there. I don't know if they've done that yet or not.
Yeah, wasn't there going to be a building?
Yeah, there was foundations
Yeah.
made, there was two of them. They were
Right.
construct garages. We not done that?
I haven't been back there to look, but I don't know.
Those are, I believe, are in the works.
Okay. So a lot of these projects sometimes take years, but not necessarily approved.
But still need to be appropriated for, to even get started.
I was just going to make a comment on the criteria for the capital program committee. Certainly from my experience 2 years ago and going through this process last year is also a little bit of what can we afford to do. And the town has been in a fortunate position for a couple of years that you haven't had to lock too many things off. I mean, you can figure out a way to finance pretty much the whole request list that comes into the capital program committee. Or come up with a plan to finance the bigger chunks, which they've done as well.
This is probably the first year when we haven't had, we can identify exactly how we're going to pay for the whole $5 million or whatever it is. We've got a little bit more that we need to fund. We'll have to do something different with, rather than take the whole real estate sales fund of 4.4.
See Tom back there says that he didn't want Tom to get fall asleep on us. What is a vault room replacement?
Tom,
That's what the board's looking at.
think of it more as a control room, but it's not a bank vault. It's not where they keep the money. Tom, do you want to answer that question? Because I know it came up at the selectmen's meeting as well. You might as well answer it. We need to change the name of that, I think.
It's actually where all of our switchgear and regulators for the airfield lighting is contained. So it's replacement of all airfield regulators and switchgear.
That's a good name for it.
Yeah. Vault does, coming from a
I
bank.
wish it was one where we kept all the money.
That's electrical.
Electric.
Right.
I'm sure I've asked this question before, but you depend heavily on reimbursements from the federal government, the state, for a lot of your programs. And perhaps we'll get into it with your budgets, but does all of that tie out over the years? Do we have enough of an audit trail, I use the word audit in quotes, I guess, to know that we're actually getting the reimbursements?
Oh, yeah. There's an audit actually done on it as well, too. So.
And that just goes immediately to retire the debt that we've...
For those projects, yeah. And then there are various ways we carry either the sponsor share.
So when you come and tell us that you're going to get money from the feds, we can tie your words to...
A grant, it's all...
And the money did come
Yep.
with the grant.
We meet regularly with Brian and his staff to make sure we're getting everything and it's all accounted for. Yep.
We haven't had that issue since Tom came in.
No comment.
No comment. Tom does a great job.
Thank you.
By my calculation anyway, you're gonna have to, you get all the grants, you think you're gonna have, that leaves about $471,000, somewhere in that range.
It's actually it's the 471 plus another 77.5 for the matching share. So it's actually about 548,000 that we would have to bond.
Okay. That answers one of the questions. But follow-on question is, how can the airport afford to spend that kind of money?
can afford to spend the debt service associated with the 540? Yeah, this is, when we, you asked about a budget for the capital committee. When we go into the capital committee, we start with an estimated budget of about 2.2 million total. And so we'll start with a project list that could go up to 5, 6, 7, 10 million dollars. And we cut it down to keep it within what we believe is our operating can withstand in terms of the debt service. So that's how we get into our number here. We kind of work a little backwards, and we make an assumption on our operating that this is the area that we have to be in to keep it within our debt service.
You have a pretty good idea what you think the operation plan for next year looks like.
Yep.
Bill, and perhaps this would be for Kara on the sidewalk improvement plan for 1.5 million. In particular, I'm not sure, I didn't see it listed here, but the section of road on Pleasant Street from Five Corners to the post office. Is that included in this, or is that already in the works?
No, this is all downtown, but I don't know what phase.
Sorry, it's not an established project at this moment, but I do have Frank Holgate surveying it so that we can get estimates and put it into the capital program.
Under sewers, I see there's $1 million in there for Wisconsin plant evaluation and repairs. Is there any specifics at this time of that?
No, but not that I know of. It's going to be that's what the $1 million is for.
Yeah.
Evidently, it hasn't been really looked at since it was put in 25 or so years ago, and Bob thinks it's
So
in
that's
need of a lot of work.
That's kind of a plug number then, really, at this point, knowing you're going to have to do something, you just don't know exactly what.
I was talking about. I'm sorry, I was the wrong item.
We've experienced a number of backups and breaks in Sconset, and what we've kind of learned the hard way is that the system has been extended by fits and starts. So we do need an evaluation to find out what we have there. We know that we have clay pipes that we need to deal with downtown, and we need to identify the issues that we have out in Sconset. So this is the number to begin addressing that.
Yeah, and also included on that covers evaluation and some repairs, because I think we had asked that question in the capital, but we're probably going to see, almost, that's going to take a while for that. David's description of that whole system, David Gray, is in dire need, and so I think we're going to see that item come up for a number of years to get that right.
A lot more than this.
Yeah.
Moving on to the water companies, there's about, $680,000, $700,000 of funding sources identified.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it fair to say that we're requesting the money out of the general fund and not from the enterprise fund to make those capital investments?
I'm not aware that they're coming out of the general fund.
Well, there's a funding source identified, and only two of them have Watercom and Water Company listed as funding sources. The balance, $680,000, Wisconsin, including Wisconsin, is unidentified.
Oh, under funding sources.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, it could be, more than likely, it'll be retained earnings from either one of Wanacom or Wisconsin.
But it's not going to,
It's not identified on the Excel sheet, but on the detail sheets from the software, it is identified as the water company.
so it's not included in the 9.1 million out of general fund?
No, it's not.
Thanks, Ron.
So appreciate all the work you do, your team has done. So I just wanted to ask Peter, who's our representative for the finance committee, to comment on the process.
Great, thanks, Jim. From our concern, the process is very, very robust, and the fact us with a backup work picture or a funding source of what they think should be replaced. We then ask questions which steers maybe direction in a different direction. But from our standpoint, the process was more of providing good information. There was only one item that I think we didn't have adequate information. That was on the field house, the limited field house. With the software, it gives the department head ample opportunity to put in the reasons for the justifications. We found that information to be much more helpful for us on the committee so that we can make decisions and more or less understand before the department came into the meeting. So from that standpoint, that was a great process.
Anybody have any questions of Peter?
Yeah, normally in the enterprise funds, the thing that we've done in the past is look at the retained earnings and look at what they're asking for the seal. So we have a pretty good, always have a pretty good understanding of where the enterprise funds could meet. And I asked Tom that specific question, but it means all of it. Can we assume that the amounts that are asked here can be covered by retained earnings of the enterprise?
The answer, I think, Brian had alluded to, we question not only the enterprise funds and the general funds going forward, what if these projects can we afford? And where are the funds going to be coming from? And it's obviously a major concern, especially when we don't know the impact even today on items that are out there with our tax rates. Don't fully understand that.
Yeah, but I mean, assume on the solid waste has never had any money in retained earnings, and that,
Well, it does, but that is not enough to cover it.
Any other questions of Phil?
Yeah, just about a new sludge truck, 10-wheeler dump truck. Are we adding another one? Because I would think the other one's that old. What was the question?
It's a replacement.
So, yeah.
How old was the last one you just had?
I think 2009. And if you go behind it, you don't want it.
Okay.
I can testify to that effect. I'm going to ask you to change your hours in transport.
You should try to get behind it sometime.
Yeah, just to experience it, to say you've done it.
I might mention Kara did an outstanding job of presenting us with pictures of facilities and trucks and things that were just in atrocious shape and need to be replaced. So I commend you, Kara, for your hard work and photography, because it's hard to look at some of this. How they do it, what they do, is hard to believe.
So you guys have worked on this, and you've seen all of the, had a lot of discussion about the capital projects we're spending, and a lot of money, and I know a lot of it is catch up. Are we, to the extent that you can look out, are we going through a period of time where we just have got to get these capital investments behind us, and then, we come off of this enormous investment cycle we're in, or are we, based on what you're hearing, are we really just, do we have to get acclimated to the new norm of spending $10, $15 million in capital every year with an occasional spike?
Haven't done a serious analysis, but I don't see an end in sight of big items. I look out at the sewer projects that go out. If we do those, these projects got moved in into 2017, moved up. Maybe we would have had one, the Nantucket one, but then Monomoy and the others got moved in. So
But if we took out sewers,
if you take out sewers, then you got town buildings. You get 2 Fairgrounds Road. If anything happens on our island home, it could be in the range of 40 million. Trying to think of any other big items.
So I think maybe I don't know the correct terms. I think the question is, I don't want to call it operating capital, but this is the capital that would be required to kind of maintain and expand some businesses. These other
Could be debt exclusion. Yeah.
well, not so much the source of it, just those are the blips. I mean, and the question is on the
I would think
But
so.
that's like a 50% increase in
Yeah.
what
We,
had.
Or are we going to get back to the 5 million we were operating
Yeah,
at?
I don't
Ish.
know, but,
Ish.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. I'd have to look at the
I mean,
sheets.
You know, that's one of the things we're getting into later, looking at the 10-year capital plan, but I think that's we're looking for something.
I think if we looked at 2018, it's probably a little firmer than farther out years, in these sheets here. So,
Yeah, I mean, we have placeholder.
Guidance as well for the taxpayers.
mm-hmm.
I mean, we have placeholders for the items we know, the items that are getting managed over a period of time, and maybe something that's on a schedule that needs to be replaced in 6 years. And I think those big ticket items stagger in, once in a while. We're just seeing a lot of them now. I think with some of the items we're looking at this year, we've been looking at for quite a few years now. So, but it's a good question.
I just want to comment, but,
We'd like to know that too.
that may be something this committee needs to chat more about. As I observe the process, the requests come in from town administration and enterprise funds. They get reviewed thoroughly by your committee to make recommendations. But it's not in the context of the board or long term or, this is, so is that kind of your question?
Yeah, well, that and the fact that, with virtually no discussion at town meeting last year, we approved $170 million. So we're on a track to approve $250 million, $300 million in the space of 2 town meetings, which is a staggeringly large amount of money. And I don't know that people step back and think about, even for Nantucket, it's a
It's a big,
staggeringly large amount of money.
it is. Yeah, the
It's
sewers.
a great discussion. Appreciate the thoroughness and all the time you all took.
John, one quick question, and that is maybe more for Brian, because David is one that tripped my mind on this. We have some enterprise funds which we have to make up through the general fund. And that means that any capital that we spend is going to have to be really made up by the general fund as far as financing is concerned. And I can't see where that's reflected in here. In other words, we have the general fund, we have a list of the general fund, and then we have a list of the enterprise funds, but I don't see those the enterprise funds that are going to have to be picked up through the general fund. I don't see those.
Right, and it kind of goes back to the question you had about retained earnings before, too. I think probably the two that you're referring to are either solid waste or our island home, being the two. As we move forward with the requests that I had got from the Finance Committee, and as well as the discussion with the Capital Program Committee in doing the 10-year financing piece, any piece that cannot be covered by retained earnings that would have to be borrowed is going to be factored into and broken out in the general fund itself for those two particular enterprise funds. So that is in this global 10-year, the debt may or may not look like over a 10-year period if we choose to take it on. Those pieces will be accounted for as portions of the general fund debt itself.
What I think you're saying is a little premature to try to figure out how much that's going to be here because of the.
Well, in this year, the 715 for our island home, which I think Phil had alluded to is necessary to keep it operating while we kind of figure the direction, is going to have to be funded via the general fund, via debt. That would be paid for by the general fund. The solid waste, I don't remember off the top of my head. We may have retained earnings that can cover whatever the small piece is this year. But any of those pieces of debt would be calculated as general fund, whatever couldn't be covered by retained earnings.
Just when we look at this material, look at the general fund, I don't see anything in there that says that.
Well, because they would be specifically, they're specific enterprise projects, and at the end, the funding source, when we finally finalize that exact way it's going to look, then it would have a line that would say general fund, either 2.5 or regular. So at the end of the day, when those are sorted out, we'll have that line item in it as where that particular funding source is. So it is something we are looking at. So it is not something that we haven't thought of.
How you present it as of now.
Mhm.
What we're saying right now is what's presented, there's probably going to be a little bit more in there. The problem is we don't know exactly how much, because depending on how retained earnings moves around and everything
Right.
else, you're not sure what that quantity is going to be.
Well, as of right, I mean, right now I do know the 715 in the Ireland home is not going to be able to be covered by retained earnings. So I know that, and off the top of my head, I don't exactly remember what's in there for the for solid waste. If it's not very much and it can be covered by the retained earnings, then we wouldn't have to do anything with it. So right now, in my mind, the only items are really our Island home that are going to be covered by general fund debt or paid through the general fund. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it just means that you have to think about it. Looking at
We do, and when I make the big presentation, I'll have noted and annotated what is moved from where to where so that you can see what those impacts are individually as well. Okay?
I also want to thank, on behalf of the Finance Committee, all the department heads that came out, all the work we've done. Sounds like together with town administration, you've got a nice tool. Sounds like you've used it, and made everyone's work easier.
Thank you, Jim. And I want to thank the department heads as well. I know that the plan will get better in succeeding years, because this was the first year it was thrown on them kind of at the last minute, and they did a great job rallying and getting the input into us. So we appreciate that very much. And I want to thank the committee members. Really good committee. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is Lady Ryan's Peak, which is January 7th. Take a look at your schedule. We're going to start bouncing around a bit in terms of the increases.
Just shower.
The agenda for that meeting will be the general fund budget recommendation from town administration. And you all
you still yeah, no matter what the funding split is. So either people are going to have to accept that it's theoretical, it will pay a small portion, or else we, you know, in that loan, we probably the loan would probably be the way to get it all back.
$1 million ball.
Provided we can actually borrow it for that purpose, but.
How are you entitled to the SRF tomorrow?
20 years old. It's 100% ironclad because what happens is that there's a calculation and you get a subsidy from the SRF that offsets the interest so that you're at 0%. And federal rules do not allow you to extend that loan because you would get for taxpayers there's a greater subsidy per year and you can't get a benefit like that. So there's no option. It's 20 years. Unless, now, if we wanted to go longer, we would have to accept a different interest rate other than 0.
Leading up to the practices.
So that, and that interest rate would be calculated and would have to be created so that the interest rate would generate the same exact subsidy that you would have gotten at 0%. So to me, there's really no, it doesn't make sense to figure out. It's better to figure out the back end than it is to give up the 0%. So.
Hi, guys. Take it easy.
I don't know yet.
Hey, Cliff.
What's the word?
Pretty good. Well, want to comment, well, with the exception of like the big 1.5 million, they should be able to cover the other stuff this year with retainer.